Before we dive into today's intense story, a quick reminder. Over 90% of our viewers watch our videos but aren't subscribed. If you enjoy content like this, take a second to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. And if you find this story gripping, don't forget to like the video. It really helps us out. I've always believed that the truth, no matter how painful, is better than a comfortable lie. But sometimes, it takes years of living in that lie before you can finally see it for what it is. My name is Ava, and for 17 years, I was the wife of a man I thought I knew. His name is Jared. When we met, he was charming, soft-spoken, and full of dreams. I was drawn to his quiet confidence, the way he made me feel like I was the only woman in the room. I thought I had found someone who saw me, truly saw me, and loved me for who I was. We married young. I was 24, just starting a career in graphic design, and he was 29, working as an IT manager at a logistics firm. We had a small, beautiful wedding with only close friends and family. I still remember how his hands trembled slightly as he held mine, how he whispered that I made his life complete. I believed every word. For the first few years, things were good, at least on the surface. We had a nice little house in the suburbs, the kind with flower beds and a white picket fence. We had 2 children, Emma and Lucas, who became the light of my life. I worked freelance so I could be home with them while Jared continued climbing the corporate ladder. From the outside, we were the picture of a happy, successful family. But behind closed doors, things weren't as perfect as they seemed. Jared started working late. At first, just occasionally, then more frequently. He was always tired, always distracted. I chalked it up to stress. I did my best to support him, to keep our home running smoothly. I cooked, cleaned, helped with homework, and smiled through it all. I ignored the growing distance between us, convincing myself that every marriage went through phases. The red flags were there, of course. The way he kept his phone glued to him, the way he suddenly became secretive about his messages. I caught him once texting someone at 1 a.m. When I asked who it was, he laughed it off and said it was a coworker with a server emergency. I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him. So I did. But things kept piling up. The missed anniversaries, the holidays cut short because of last-minute projects, the scent of unfamiliar perfume on his shirts that he dismissed as cologne from the office. I started to feel like a ghost in my own home, present but unseen. I felt small, dismissed, and worst of all, disposable. It wasn't until Lucas got sick that the truth began to crack through the lies. He had a bad flu that landed him in the hospital for 2 days. I called Jared dozens of times, but he didn't answer. He texted once to say he was in a meeting. I told him our son was in the ER. Still, he didn't show up until the next afternoon, and even then, he looked annoyed more than concerned. That moment broke something in me. It was like a switch flipped. I looked at him. Not with love or longing, but with clarity. Cold, painful clarity. This man was no longer mine, and perhaps he never truly had been. I started paying attention. I became quiet, observant. I began noting his routines. When he left, how long he was gone, the shifts in his demeanor. I even went through his pockets when he was asleep and once found a receipt for dinner at a high-end restaurant in the city. A dinner for 2. I didn't say anything right away. I needed more. So I waited. Patiently. And then, one day, when he said he had an overnight conference, I followed him. I told him I had a deadline and would be working late from home, that the kids would be staying with my sister. He barely looked up from his laptop, just nodded and said, "Okay, good luck with your project." I followed him 2 hours later in my sister's old car. Nothing flashy. Nothing he'd notice. I tracked his location through a family locator app we'd both installed years ago, and he had forgotten about. He drove to a hotel, not a conference center. He didn't check in alone. A woman was with him. Tall, elegant, wearing a red coat I instantly hated. I sat in my car across the street, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stared. 17 years, 2 kids, a lifetime, and he was throwing it away for someone who probably didn't even know he had a family. The next morning, I made coffee like nothing had happened. I smiled. I kissed the kids. I even made Jared his favorite breakfast. He didn't suspect a thing. But from that moment on, my love for him was gone. What replaced it wasn't just hurt. It was resolve. I spent the next 6 months planning. Not revenge in the way you might think, but justice. A quiet, calculated unraveling of the life he had built on my back. I copied bank statements, photographed every piece of evidence I could. I contacted a lawyer discreetly and explained everything. We worked out a plan. I set up a new bank account, slowly redirected money from our joint account. Nothing noticeable. Just small transfers that added up over time. I applied for full custody. I even went back to work full-time, rekindling connections with old clients, rebuilding my confidence. He was too busy sneaking around to notice any of it. Then on our anniversary, how poetic, I handed him divorce papers over dinner. I had made his favorite meal, poured him a glass of wine, lit candles. He walked in smirking like he had a secret. I imagine he thought he was clever, balancing 2 lives without consequence. I placed the folder in front of him and said, "Happy anniversary, Jared." He opened it, brows furrowing. "What is this?" "Exactly what it looks like," I said, keeping my voice even. "I know. About her. About all of it." He laughed. Actually laughed. "Ava, come on. Don't be dramatic." "I have proof," I said. "Receipts, photos, GPS logs, messages, everything. I'm not asking for an explanation, Jared. I'm informing you that this marriage is over." His face paled. "Wait, Nam. Let's talk about this." I stood up, walked to the kitchen, and returned with another folder. "These are copies of your bank withdrawals, the ones you didn't think I'd notice. And here are the credit card charges from your little hotel getaways. You can take it all to your lawyer." He tried to talk, to lie, to spin it. But I wasn't listening anymore. I had already moved on, even if he didn't know it. The days that followed were a blur of meetings, paperwork, and whispered conversations with the kids. I didn't badmouth their father. I would never do that. But I was honest in a way that was age-appropriate. They were heartbroken, confused, but resilient. I made sure they knew they were loved, that none of this was their fault. Jared, on the other hand, began to unravel. The woman he had been seeing found out about me and the kids and left him. His company discovered he'd misused corporate cards for his conferences and put him on unpaid leave. Suddenly, the man who thought he could have it all was alone. I wasn't interested in revenge in the traditional sense. I didn't want to ruin his life. I just wanted him out of mine. But watching him face the consequences of his choices gave me something I hadn't felt in years: peace. And that was only the beginning. I didn't expect peace to feel so unfamiliar. For years, I had lived in a home that felt like a battleground, silently enduring the tension, the mistrust, the loneliness. Once Jared was gone, I thought the silence would haunt me. But it didn't. It soothed me. After he moved out, the house changed. Not in the way it looked, same furniture, same walls, but in how it felt. I could breathe again. The tension had evaporated. The weight on my chest that I hadn't even realized I was carrying slowly lifted. The kids were quiet at first, unsure how to adjust. But within weeks, they began laughing more freely, talking at the dinner table, asking questions without fear. It was as if we had all been holding our breath for years and finally exhaled. Jared didn't take the divorce well. At first, he acted as if it was all just a misunderstanding, something we'd eventually laugh about. When he realized I wasn't backing down, he shifted. He tried guilt, tried to play the victim. We were both distant, he said during one of our mediated sessions. You were always busy with the kids, the house, your work. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The evidence was on the table, literally and figuratively. Photos, financial records, months of lies wrapped up neatly in a manila envelope. He thought I'd fight with him. He was ready for a screaming match, some dramatic scene. But I refused to give him that. I gave him silence, composure, dignity. And that, I think, frustrated him more than anything. By the time the divorce was finalized, I had already stepped into a new rhythm. I found a job with a boutique design firm in the city that allowed remote work. The kids stayed with me full-time, though he had visitation rights every other weekend. He missed half of them. I didn't push. I documented, quietly, carefully. Then came the financial decline. He had been suspended from work and eventually terminated after an internal audit. The woman he had been seeing, her name was Natalie, I found out, had moved across the country and blocked him. I could have gloated. I could have thrown it in his face, but I didn't. I had more important things to focus on, like healing. I joined a local support group for women going through divorce. Most of us had similar stories: neglect, betrayal, deception. But it wasn't a pity party. It was a place for rebuilding, for learning who we were outside of someone else's shadow. I shared my story gradually, piece by piece, and listened to theirs. There was power in that circle, in knowing I wasn't alone. One day, after group, a woman named Renee pulled me aside. "You're stronger than you think," she said. "You didn't just survive. You dismantled the whole lie, brick by brick." Her words stayed with me. They weren't just a compliment. They were a reminder. The real turning point came 6 months after the divorce. Jared showed up at my house unannounced. It was a Sunday afternoon, and I was in the backyard with the kids. Emma was painting on the patio table. Lucas was kicking a ball around, and I was sipping iced tea, enjoying the sun. When I heard the front gate open, my heart sank. He still had the code. He looked tired. Not just physically, but worn down from the inside out. His shirt was wrinkled, his hair unkempt, and he had this desperate look in his eyes. "Ava," he said, as if the sound of my name could open a door that had long since been closed. "Can we talk?" The kids froze. I stood up and sent them inside, telling them to grab a snack. They obeyed without question. "I won't take long," he said. I crossed my arms. "You have 5 minutes." He started talking about how hard things had been, how he missed the kids, how he missed me. He tried to recall old memories, the way our wedding song used to make me cry, the way I'd light cinnamon candles every fall. He was trying to appeal to the version of me that no longer existed. "I made a mistake," he said finally. "I lost everything. You. Them. My job. I was stupid. I thought I was missing out on something, but I wasn't. I was already where I belonged." I didn't say a word. I waited until he finished. Then I looked him in the eyes and said, "You weren't missing out on something, Jared. You were just too blind to see what you had." He blinked, caught off guard. "You lost us the moment you decided you deserved more than loyalty and love," I continued. "This isn't about a mistake. It's about a choice. A series of choices. You chose her. You chose to lie. You chose to walk away. I know. But can't we?" "No," I said firmly. "There is no we. Not anymore. I'm not the woman you used to manipulate. I'm not here to fix what you broke." His jaw clenched, the remorse in his eyes shifting into something else. Frustration, perhaps. Embarrassment, maybe both. "I just want to be in their lives," he muttered. "Then start acting like it," I said, walking toward the door. "Show up. Be consistent. Stop making promises you don't intend to keep. And don't come here uninvited again." I changed the code. I closed the door behind me and leaned against it, listening to his footsteps as he walked away. Later that night, I sat with the kids and talked to them again, openly, honestly. I told them that people make mistakes, but part of growing up is understanding which mistakes are forgivable and which ones have consequences. They asked if their dad would come back. I told them the truth. "He'll always be your father," I said, "but he won't be my husband again." That part of our story is over. The months that followed were calmer. Jared eventually found a job, something far less prestigious, and tried to re-establish a relationship with the kids. I led him under strict guidelines. If he missed a visit, he had to explain himself to them, not to me. I was done being the messenger, the peacemaker, the buffer. I had been all those things for years. Now I was just Ava, a mother, a woman rebuilding her life. I began investing in myself more. Took a few courses in business development, launched a side project, designing branding kits for small businesses. I even started running in the mornings, something I hadn't done since college. Each day, I felt stronger, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally. One day, I found myself laughing, really laughing, over coffee with a colleague. It hit me how rare that had become during my marriage. I'd spent so long shrinking myself, dimming my own light, trying to keep someone else comfortable. But now, there was space. Space to grow, to breathe, to dream. That's when I realized something important. The revenge I had been seeking wasn't about tearing Jared down. It was about lifting myself up, reclaiming the life I had been denied, becoming the woman I was meant to be all along. And I wasn't done yet. I didn't plan to run into Jared again, not in the way it happened. It had been over a year since our divorce was finalized. The kids had adapted to our new lives. The house was full of music again. Lucas was learning the guitar, and Emma had developed a passion for baking, leaving behind a trail of flour and sugar and laughter in the kitchen. It wasn't perfect. Some nights were hard, especially when the kids would come back from one of Jared's visits with questions I couldn't answer or disappointment written across their faces. But we were healing, together. I was at a small business conference downtown. It was part of the new path I had carved out for myself, consulting with women entrepreneurs, helping them build brands and find their voice. I was in my element, confident, fulfilled, proud of who I had become. And then I saw him. He was standing near the hotel lobby bar, talking to someone in a suit. His appearance had changed. He had put on weight. His posture slouched with the kind of weariness that doesn't just come from age, but from regret. I was about to turn away when he noticed me. Our eyes locked for just a second. He walked over. "Ava," he said. "You look good." I gave a polite smile. "Thanks. I have a meeting. Can I talk to you for a second?" "Just a second," he asked, eyes pleading. Part of me wanted to say no, but another part, the stronger one, knew I had nothing to fear anymore. I nodded and stepped aside with him. "I heard about your business," he said. "People are talking. You've really made something for yourself." "I have," I said without apology. He hesitated. I was a fool. I think about that every day. I didn't know how much I was losing until it was already gone. I nodded, letting him speak. I thought I wanted freedom, some adventure. I thought I deserved more. But the truth is, I had everything and threw it away. And you became exactly the woman I always knew you were capable of being. I just didn't deserve you. I didn't offer comfort. He wasn't looking for it. He was searching for closure, maybe forgiveness. But I had already given myself that a long time ago. "I hope you find peace, Jared," I said. "I truly do. But you don't need to carry my memory like a wound. You made your choice. And I made mine." He nodded slowly, blinking more than necessary. As I turned to leave, he called after me. "You're still the strongest person I've ever known." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The past no longer had its grip on me. Later that night, back at home, I watched Emma decorate cookies while Lucas strummed a simple melody on his guitar. The air smelled like vanilla and cinnamon. There was no shouting, no tension, no storm brewing under the surface. Just life, imperfect and beautiful. I often get asked if I still believe in love. The answer is yes. But not the kind that's built on grand promises or fleeting passion. I believe in the kind of love that shows up when no one's watching. The love that's steady, loyal, quietly brave. I also believe in something deeper, self-respect. That was the real revenge. Not revenge in the way Jared might have feared. No screaming in courtrooms or public humiliation. My revenge was quiet. It was watching him realize that I had rebuilt everything he shattered. Stronger, wiser, untouchable. I no longer carry the need to explain why I stayed as long as I did or why I left when I did. I made peace with all of it. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away without burning the bridge, just making sure it's one they'll never cross again. Now, when I look in the mirror, I see a woman I admire. A woman who lost everything she thought she needed, only to discover she had everything she truly required inside her all along. And that is the kind of revenge that lasts forever.